Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I do apologize for my absence. I was at the Kenya ICT Inaugural Innovation Forum, which was all about the ICT sector, pulling together all the players. Very interesting 2 days I've spent at the KICC, which is a wonderful retro building of ours here in Nairobi, totemic even. I'll tell you all about that in a moment. Going back, starting with home thoughts. Once upon a time, I would leave my home just before 7 to get to the office at around 7:15 or 7:20. Then I started leaving at 6:30 in order to arrive just before 7. And now I leave at 10 to 6 to get at my desk at 6:15, because if I left any later, it's a crapshoot with a low of 45 minutes and a high of more than 2 hours. I took this photograph at 6:26 a.m. Good morning from the 8th floor. This is a photo of Nairobi at that time. And in that early light, as I drive from the house to the office, it's a little surreal because so many people, in fact, walk to work. It's practically biblical at times. And occasionally you find yourself having to make a deep swerve in order to avoid someone. Kenyan traffic tweeted at 7:40 this morning this photograph of the human traffic as people go to their office. And then the most curious thing of all, you will find yourself behind a fellow who will drive at 5 kilometers per hour for about 10 minutes. And when you finally decide you've had enough and you overtake this 5 kilometers an hour fellow, it morphs into Ayrton Senna. What's with that? Hannah and I spent 5 minutes looking at the stars this morning, which was fun. Lake Elementaita and Lamu are the places where you can practically touch the Milky Way, just reach up. It's just amazing. I put up a photograph from the study at Lake Elementaita, which is a Serena Hotels property, and it's really very lovely. And another one of Hannah and her mother riding along the seashore at the same place, Lake Elementaita. There's this mist that the lake emits, which makes it even more mysterious and beautiful to look at. The colors are lovely. From there I jumped to Malcolm Gladwell, who said the tipping point is that magic moment when an idea, a trend, or social behavior crosses a threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. Business Bloomberg is asking, is the mysterious light on the dwarf planet a sign of life? Researchers, some of whom have worked on the $473 million Dawn mission for more than a decade, say they're surprised by the strange brightness from Ceres's otherwise highly cratered dark surface of fairly primitive composition, according to Carol Raymond, Deputy Principal Investigator of the Dawn mission. The mystery will be solved, she says, but it is one that has really got us on the edge of our seats. On that note, I'll put up a photograph I took of the snow peaks of Mount Kenya one morning from the slopes of the Fairmont Mount Kenya. And in the photograph, subsequently, I realized there was a mysterious green light. That mysterious green light takes me to the Great Gatsby. And as I sat there brooding on the old, unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgiastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms further, one fine morning. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Netanyahu warned Obama against accepting a nuclear deal with Iran that would be a countdown to a potential nuclear nightmare by a country that will always be an enemy of America. Iran's nuclear program can be rolled back well beyond the current proposal by insisting on a better deal and keeping up the pressure on a very vulnerable regime, especially given the recent collapse of the price of oil. I concluded by saying a US-Iran rapprochement represents an existential threat to Bibi Netanyahu, not to the state of Israel. Netanyahu tweeted, "I am truly humbled by the overwhelming support today during my speech to Congress. Thank you." The Prime Minister, this is according to the New Yorker, received 23 standing ovations for his portrayal of Iran as a villainous country now gobbling up 4 other Middle Eastern countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon and Yemen. How many more countries will Iran devour when sanctions are lifted, he asked. We must all stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation and terror. As Netanyahu addressed Congress, Secretary of State John Kerry was meeting with his Iranian counterpart, their 8th round of talks in this year alone, 4,000 miles away, in the Swiss resort city of Montreux, which I visited when I was 9, and where there is a castle I think Lord Byron stayed in for a while, to try to nail down a framework for an agreement within the next 3 weeks. We're working away productively, Kerry told reporters. In Washington, the White House noted that President Obama was not watching Netanyahu's speech. He was participating in a video conference with his British, French, German and Italian counterparts on the Ukraine crisis. He read a transcript of Netanyahu's remarks later. The schism between the White House and an Israeli government has not been so deep since the dispute between the Reagan administration and Prime Minister Menachem Begin in the 1980s over the sale of American AWAC intelligence aircraft to Saudi Arabia. The former US ambassador to Israel, Martin Indyk, told me, "It's tragic and sad. Tensions are even reminiscent of President Eisenhower's confrontation with Israel during the 1956 invasion of Egypt during the Suez Crisis." The chemistry between Netanyahu and Obama has never been good. It's not a matter of personalities, it's a clash of realities. The two men see the world differently. But when asked to finally decide, this is about the Americans, he said a clear majority breaks in favor of a deal. That's interesting. Snowden says he's ready to return to the US to receive a fair and impartial trial. This is reported on RT News. I cannot see him returning somehow. Moving on to international markets, what evolved over time into an unstable, policy-induced risk-on, risk-off ro-ro dynamic has regressed to a destabilizing bubble-on, bubble-off bobo dynamic. Good point. Currencies, when I came in this morning, the euro was at 111.69, but I saw it fell all the way to 111.10, it seemed. Dollar index 95.41 earlier today. Japanese yen 119.61, Swiss franc 0.9605, pound 153.58, Aussie 0.7821. That of course bounced on a no change decision yesterday. India rupee 61.667. That was before the rate cut of a quarter point was announced. South Korean won 1096.96, Rial 293.11, Egyptian pound 763.06, and the rand 1174.51. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. Let's see what happens when the Fed raises interest rates in June. I was calling this move in the dollar from September 2014, and I remain of the view that there is plenty more to come. On the 20th of September, I wrote a piece called A Small Window for Sharks as Dollar Rises. I'll put up a photograph of the shark and buy more. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart. My new target is now 0.93. Previously I'd been looking for parity on the 12th of January. I'm now looking for 0.93. Commodity markets, crude oil, last time I checked, $50.62. $55, if you look at this 1-month chart on Bad Post, has been the top of the recent trading range. Ali Naimi, of course, is now trying to put a floor under the price, if you go by his recent interventions. Brent held above $60 a barrel on Wednesday, supported by a hike in Saudi crude prices and strikes on oil facilities in Libya. In a move widely seen as a vote of confidence by Saudi Arabia in demand recovery, the OPEC kingpin raised the official selling price for its oil deliveries to Asia and the United States on Tuesday. This is a sign that prices have bottomed out because it means Saudi is confident in raising prices without being afraid of losing market share. In the past 7 weeks, Brent crude rose from a 6-year low to hold above $60 a barrel despite continued concerns about global oversupply. But this is another negative point for prices. We still have the big question mark over Iran. This month is the crunch month for P5+1 talks, and that would also bring extra supply onto the market. US crude stocks rose 2.9 million barrels last week. Analysts expected an increase of 4.2 million barrels. That's why I think we're about $50 right now. On that note, I'll put up a photograph of the Saudi oil minister, Ali Naimi. And in my view, Saudi Arabia is no longer the price setter in the oil markets, the US is. And I wrote about that on the 13th of October last year when I said it is the US that is the new price setter for the oil markets, and this is a deep and important geopolitical development. US production in January averaged 9.2 million barrels per day compared to 8.6 million barrels per day in 2014. EIA estimates an average 9.5 million barrels per day production in 2016. I'll put up a 6-month chart of gold. I remain bearish. Rajan cut the benchmark repurchase rate to 7.5% from 7.75% in India. Have a look at the Sensex over the last 12 months. This is the Narendra Modi dividend versus the Dow. Excellent piece of research by Nielsen, Africa, How to Navigate the Retail Distribution Labyrinth. Really worth reading in full. If I can just pull out a few points. Talking about Nigeria being Africa's largest consumer goods market, talking about in the course of 6 months the highest selling new product measured in Nielsen's retail index reached 65% of the retail universe of 745,000 outlets, while the next 9 best-selling products were available in just 30% of these outlets. Very, very interesting, saying that 80% of consumers shop in traditional outlets, and that a lot of multinationals have a lack of understanding how consumers differ in this vast continent. Well worth reading in full. Links on Rich Rambo. The DRC economy grew at 9.5% in 2014. That's the Prime Minister. One of its best performances since 1960, the year it secured independence, Prime Minister Augustin Matata Ponyo said on Tuesday. That took me to some photographs of President Kabila that had been posted by RD Congo Benelux. President Kabila visiting newly refreshed Hospital du Cinquantenaire in Kisangani, and some newborns. Somebody is told to kiss some babies, as you can see from this photograph. And then September 10th last year, President Kabila posing High Commander Medal of National Hero Order Lumumba over Lieutenant General Bahuma's coffin in Congo. Fitch warned that South Africa could lose its investment-grade status. Our rating for South Africa is BBB with a negative outlook, so we are signaling that a downgrade is more likely than not. South African all-share up 6.87% year-to-date, just 244 points below a record high reached on the 24th of February this year. Dollar rand 11.74.51. It's going back to 12 in my view. Egyptian pound 7.63.06. The Egyptian stock market has come off its highs of this year, but it's still up 6.18% year to date. Nigeria expects to lower its forecast for 2015 economic growth after cutting its forecast to 5.54% in January after oil prices fell and the currency weakened. Yemi Kale told the Reuters Africa Summit on Tuesday he did not expect a reduction of more than 1% in the 5.54% forecast. Final figures will be released by half year, he said. Staying with Nigeria, this is an article in the Washington Post. When we were young, the government would always say, "You are the future of tomorrow." Now we just try to make our own strides, because if you wait for them, you'll starve. Very interesting articles about this sort of model middle-class city called Festac, which was built in its current condition. Nigeria all-share down 11.7% year-to-date, but has bounced to 3,106 points since the 13th of February. Reuters put up this photograph of a burnt pickup truck seen in front of a building that Boko Haram insurgents used as their base before being driven out by the Chadian military in Dikwa March 2nd. A black and white Boko Haram flag still flutters on top of a deserted villa. Inside the villa's pink and white walls, the blood trickled into corridors, and a pile of insurgents' bodies lay on a heap in a wardrobe. They resisted ferociously. This huge villa was their command center. A Chadian soldier who fought in the battle told a Reuters reporter visiting the town after fighting subsided. Oil-rich Nigeria's main cities are also facing acute gasoline shortages as importers feel the pinch of a plummeting local currency, tighter credit lines and unpaid government subsidies, oil traders and local industry sources said. Queues of double-parked cars stretch outside filling stations. This is not good for President Goodluck Jonathan. Ghana Composite Index down 3.68% year-to-date. East African Breweries is seeking to raise 11 billion shillings, $120 million, through a medium-term note program. If you haven't seen the first half results, do have a look at them. The share price took fright recently on the Crude announcement, and it's massively overdone to the downside again. Have a look at my interview with Charles that I did on the occasion of his first half earnings release. Oil prices would probably need to rise to about $75 to $85 a barrel from around $50 currently for Tullow Oil and Africa Oil to go ahead with their Kenyan project. This is the CEO of Africa Oil. We still need oil prices to recover probably above today's levels to pull the trigger on the project sanction. I am quite confident that oil prices will recover by the end of the year, he said. I wrote about this on the 12th of January when I said I do not see a near-term bounce in the oil price. I think it could average $50 a barrel for the next 24 months. I don't think there's a Hail Mary pass coming. Ganga Shiku tweeted that there's been a 63 million shilling a day drop in TV advertising spending. This is post the digital migration fracas. Uhuru Kenyatta, at the function that I was at yesterday, directed state firms to place all their adverts on digital outlets. We are spending hundreds of millions of shillings in advertising through the media. Let the ministries and other public bodies advertise through the digital platform we just launched and save that money for use in other things. That's interesting. Obviously, nation media in particular, because they carry enormous amounts of advertising, are going to suffer. And you take into mind what the losses are at the moment. I put up a photograph of the president at yesterday's function where he said innovation is vital and urgent. Do not hold back. Let's move forward on this great adventure. I wrote about the Nairobi Securities Exchange over the weekend being on a red hot streak, but of course it's been trading lower this week. But I started with a story about Kerry. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has been on a Kerry type winning streak. Kerry was an Australian tycoon who founded World Series Cricket, which was a breakaway professional cricket competition staged between 1977 and 1979. World Series Cricket started the innovation process which reinvented cricket, what everyone is watching now. Kerry Packer was a famous and lucky gambler and apparently walked into Vegas one evening, and there was a noisy Texas oil man in the corner around whom all the attractive girls were buzzing like bees, and he calls over the waiter and asks, "How much is that man worth?" The waiter responds, $60 million. Packer walks over, introduces himself, and takes out a coin and says, "I'll toss you for $60 million. So that was just the start, but it was a similar lucky streak. Kenya shilling, pretty stable, frankly. Nairobi oil share up 6.2% year to date, but it's been in a correction mode. NSE 20 for the first time overtaking the oil share, up 7.1% year to date at a 7-year high. The World Bank slap in the middle of results season. National Bank reported this morning, NIC Bank as well, and I'll take a look at that momentarily. Once again, thank you for stopping by and bearing with me.